Now I've got the congressman for Florida's 23rd Congressional District, Jared Moskowitz. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you for having me.
So we are coming off of the House resolution to censure Adam Schiff because the Republican Party apparently has a zero tolerance policy for what they view as inappropriate behavior. Did I miss the George Santos censure?
Well, look, sometimes, you get a gift. I mean, Adam really should put that down as an in-kind contribution to his campaign. I mean, as we know, he's running for U.S. Senate, and here they go by making him a hero. And so, look, this is, again, the 118th Congress. The American people have seen it. We're producing very little, if anything. It's a grievance Congress. And so, look, this place is like high school, right? Other people here have been censured for real things before. Paul Gosar being one of them. So this is tit for tat. We removed people from committee for legitimate things. They decided, you know what, we're going to get them back, and we're going to remove some Democrats from committees, including Adam Schiff. But how many Americans has this helped? Who's helped by this? Nobody. It's a grievance thing to feed into Fox News, to feed into social media, just to get people who are angry. Mostly Trump, by the way. That's another thing. This is really an audience of one. This is all for Donald Trump getting, trying to make him happy. Nancy Pelosi, who I thought was fantastic on the floor, she looked over to them and she literally said, she goes, "You guys look miserable, just miserable."
Yeah. Well, with the question, obviously I was being flippant, but what does it say that a party that seeks to punish Adam Schiff for the crime of investigating a known indicted criminal is simultaneously lining up to defend the George Santoses and Donald Trump and whatever other liars and thieves and criminals they can find?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's one of the things, right? They have no credibility on these topics, okay? But that doesn't seem to stop them, right? Literally, they're trying to go after someone on ethics while they're protecting someone right now who is literally under investigation by the Department of Justice, been charged, okay? Just had to release the people who paid for his bail in George Santos. And yet they pretend like it doesn't happen, like he doesn't exist. They have no credibility in these oversight hearings. Every time they talk about people who are not, they're not willing to comply with a subpoena. I'm sorry. These were the people cheering on the Trump administration not to comply with subpoenas. But, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They're absolute hypocrites. But what they count on is they count on the American people forgetting that they did all of that stuff.
To that point, the circus of it all, there was a moment just a few days ago where Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert clashed on the House floor because each of them were vying to introduce a resolution to censure Joe Biden or to impeach Joe Biden before the other one could. What was the feeling, among both Republicans and Democrats when this thing kind of spilled out into the open?
I mean, the feeling, quite frankly, is I have my money on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, that's the feeling. I mean, if you said, Jared, you got to bet $1,000, who are you betting? I'm taking Marjorie. I mean, have you seen her clean and jerk videos in her garage? I mean, so I would take Marjorie in that. But look, my guess is and I don't know personally, my guess is they've probably had a little beef before. This is not something new. Marjorie, filed articles of impeachment against everybody. She has impeached half the Biden administration with what she's filed. And look, she's mad that, Lauren took it a step further and actually try to force a vote on it, which, by the way, they didn't. They didn't vote whether to impeach Joe Biden. They're now setting it to the Homeland Security Committee. Why? They don't have the votes. They don't have the votes to impeach Joe Biden. Why? Well, he didn't commit high crimes and misdemeanors. They don't have any evidence of that, right? So now they're going to send it to Homeland, and they're going to try to convince the American people for the next several months that Joe Biden should be impeached. I say, go ahead, impeach him. If you think that he committed a crime, impeach him. But they don't have any evidence. They got nothing. They're trying to tell the American people one day that he's slow, he's old, right? But now he's Tony Soprano leading the Biden crime family. And somehow Hunter is like Kaiser Sose. I mean, it's just absolutely lunacy. But this is what they got. This is what their viewers, their primary voters want to see. It's retribution. It's grievance. This is the entirety of their agenda. I don't know what they're for. I definitely know what they're against.
I do want to move on to the preeminent issue of our time here. That is the greatest threat facing America today. And I think you're starting to pick up
gas
on
stoves, right? Gas
stoves. So what are you doing, Congressman?
It's a serious war.
What are you doing to protect gas stoves? And do you think it's enough?
Well, I mean, look, I hope General Electric leads the troops into battle to fight this war on gas stoves. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we have efficiency standards. So all of our appliances have efficiency standards. Your refrigerator, your dishwasher, and guess what? Your gas stove has efficiency standards. So all the Biden administration was doing more efficiency standard stuff. Nothing was being banned, but they turned it into a ban. And they do this all the time, right? They try to create some sort of sense that the government's coming after you, the government's going to knock on your door and take away your stuff, right? Intrusion, and they get people, get all upset and agitated. And so, look, I called that out, multiple times to point out the fact that, these folks have had multiple hearings. They did gas stove week, multiple bills on gas stoves, not one thing on gun violence prevention. 6 months we've been here. You know what? Fine. We can't agree on gun violence prevention. How about school safety? Not one thing on school safety, nothing to produce, nothing for parents that they're putting their kids to bed at night and sending them to school in the morning or to the movie theater or to the mall, taking them to the grocery store. No, nothing for those parents. But hey, if you own a gas stove, maybe a nice one, a Viking, right? Good to know that the Republicans are fighting for you, although it's a lie. And so I voted for their bills because I also know at the same time, you vote against it. You know what they're going to do? They're going to send a mailer out to your district because that's the whole point of this. It's all messaging bills. Don't listen to me. Listen to the Freedom Caucus that called out their own Republicans for all these messaging bills. But they'll send out a mailer that will say, Jared Moskowitz is coming to take your gas stove. I'm not going to participate in that nonsense.
Yeah. Is there any sense of embarrassment? Like when you stand up and you've been really effective at this.
No.
You've been really effective at standing up and putting on full display the lunacy of what they're doing. But does it ever give them pause then when they've been made fun of so blatantly about this stuff, about these clown car issues, to then move forward and do this stuff again and again?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, a lot of them, especially, in the Freedom Caucus or, the MAGA wing of that party, they have no shame. I mean, there's just no shame there. So you can't shame people. You can't shame people who are unshameable. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, unfortunately, as you know, a lot of our media today is so segmented, right? We're in our bubbles. So what they count on is that their people never see it. They never see us pointing out the ridiculousness of what they're doing, the fact that they're doing gas stoves and not gun violence, right? That they're not doing background checks or red flag laws supported by over 80% of Americans, but they're censuring Adam Schiff and helping him on his senatorial campaign. So that's what they're planning on. They're planning on that nobody sees it in their orbit. What I can tell you is when you really get them, you kind of know because they kind of do a little wink and a nod, or they make a comment to you after, and so you kind of got them. But again, they really count on the fact that their voters don't ever see that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just blatant manipulation in real time. And they do the same thing, by the way, with all of Donald Trump's crimes. I mean, the guy can get thrown in jail for 40 years and he would be out there claiming complete and total exoneration, and you'd have all of right-wing media lining up behind him and repeating the same thing like little lemmings.
Well, and that's really the difference. Right? Take the Hunter Biden thing, right? So Hunter Biden is pleading to a crime, okay? How many Democrats have come out and said the DOJ should be defunded and the weaponization of the FBI? Nobody, not a single one. Why? Because we take our meds. They're out there going, that we should start defunding the government because Donald Trump literally is showering with classified documents. Okay, and the only reason I think he's showering with them is why are they near the shower? I thought it was just for convenience. But they're doing all of this Hunter stuff and all this Biden stuff as a distraction. It's all about distracting. It's all about deflecting. Donald Trump showed them how to do that. Any attack on Donald, the one thing he's very good at is if he knows he has a weakness, he immediately takes that weakness and puts it on his opponent. So look, he's in trouble, right? Bill Barr says he's toast. Chris Christie says he's in trouble. These are two former prosecutors, both have worked for Donald Trump at different points, right? Chris Christie being on the transition team, and Bill Barr being the actual attorney general. Okay. And so they know their guy's in trouble. So what do? How do we take the most boring family in America and turn them into the Gambino crime family? Oh, I know. We'll just start talking about stuff, this 1023 form that was filled out 4 years ago based on information that's 7 years old. That is double hearsay from two people saying a conversation that was completely in Russian. We'll say there's 17 tapes. Where are the tapes? Nobody knows. We'll say we have informants. Oh, produce the informants. We lost them. Hey, we got this laptop. We got this laptop with all this information. Great. Show the American people the information on the laptop. Oh, well, we can't show them that. You got, what's his name? Senator Grassley, in the Senate acting like, he knows everything. I mean, the guy's still using his BlackBerry. Okay. And by the way, his service was turned off, many years ago. And so this is what they're doing. But you know what? What happens is they got a machine that feeds it, right? And it feeds it to them on social media. It feeds it to them on Twitter. It feeds it to them on Fox News and Newsmax and OWN every single solitary day, like clockwork. It's all they get. So in that atmosphere, in that arena, if they're getting it every single solitary day, and that's all they're getting, then that's their reality. Their reality is that, as they say, Joe Biden is the most corrupt president of all time. Really? Joe Biden? I mean, you guys say that he never comes out of his basement, and he's now the most corrupt politician in the history of this country? I mean, it's just, right, Richard Nixon. Forget about Richard. It's Joe Biden. Most of the American people know that's not true. And what Democrats have to do is we have to find creative ways to point out the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah, I've said a million times on my videos, it is not about the facts with any of this stuff. It is about the narrative. They will say whatever they need to just to get these things into the narrative. Facts be damned. Even Donald Trump said it. We found out through the January 6th committee that I forgot what it was specifically, but he was like, just make an announcement that we're looking into it. We'll take care of the rest. It is just about introducing the idea.
And they're honest. And by the way, they're honest about it, right? Comer talks about, hey, Donald Trump's poll numbers are up. And Grassley in the Senate talks about, well, we're not really interested in the facts. Yeah. They just want to go with innuendo. They just want to go with, hey, maybe this, maybe that. What is this? What is that? 5 million. Let's throw that out there. By the way, my favorite part about this whole thing is this 1023 form. Every congressman who got to view this 1023 form, by the way, with the FBI sitting next to you in a SCIF, right? It's a classified document. The first page of it specifically says, do not share anything outside of this room within this document. And then they all go out. They had a microphone set up outside the room, okay, to share all of the information that literally they pledged not to share. And so, this is not a serious thing that they're doing, okay? It's off Broadway. It's totally performative, but we have to deal with it, and we have to combat it, and we have to explain to the American people what we should be working on, what our agenda is, and how all of this stuff that they're doing doesn't help any single American in their everyday lives. And oh, by the way, it's false. If they had evidence of Joe Biden did something wrong, show it to the American people. If they had evidence that Hunter Biden did something beyond what he's been charged with, show it to the American people. It's a 5-year investigation, and they got him for tax evasion and a gun. By the way, I'm pretty sure those are the prerequisites to get into the Freedom Caucus.
Right.
If they have evidence, what are they afraid of? Show it. Trust the American people. Show us the goods. They don't have anything. But
to that point on Hunter Biden, he did sign that, agree to that plea deal for failing to pay his taxes in a timely manner. Republicans are claiming that plea deal is totally unacceptable. And yet at the same time, they are working nonstop to defund the IRS, which would literally enforce exactly this kind of behavior. So is there any squaring that for Republicans, or is this just full cognitive dissonance?
Full cognitive dissonance. And you're never going to connect. You're never going to connect the two. They were all out there saying Hunter got a sweetheart deal. How do you know that? You don't know that. You don't know what evidence the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney had or didn't have. Maybe the case was really weak, right? And Hunter just said, I don't want to go through a trial, so I'm going to take a plea deal, right? So we don't know. But they immediately pivot to, what a sweetheart deal. By the way, we don't know that Donald Trump couldn't get a plea deal. Do we know that? Maybe he turned down a plea deal. Maybe he turned down a deal that there'd be no jail time, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't even want to take a meeting on a plea deal. We don't know any of this stuff, but they immediately go to what they want to sell. And listen, they're very good at sales. Again, they learned that from Donald Trump. Donald Trump could sell blenders to the American people, and there's a big segment of the population that would buy blenders from Donald Trump all day long. When he told us he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, we all chuckled and laughed. But boy, he was really correct when he said that. Every time he gets indicted, his numbers go up. He's got indictment momentum going on. I mean, at this point, he's probably like, hey, 2 or 3 more indictments, I win Iowa.
So I want to finish off with this. Can you offer any words of encouragement on behalf of Florida Democrats? Because Florida doesn't exactly inspire much hope these days.
Well, first, let me say this. I'm happy to see that the Biden campaign is going to play in Florida. Florida is right now, Magadonia, MAGA land. You got Trump and DeSantis, both residents of Florida, right? You're talking about the third largest state. And so we got to play there. Okay, so I'm really encouraged that the Biden campaign is not writing it off. That's number one. What I would say to Florida Democrats is, listen, look, the last election was a shellacking. We lost by 19 points. There's lots of reasons that happened. It didn't happen overnight. They've been investing in their infrastructure. They're Florida Republicans. It goes back to Rick Scott, Ron DeSantis, investing in registration and communication, building that whole infrastructure. And we didn't. We got national fundraisers that don't give any money to the party, but they give money to candidates. And so we got to figure out how to bring those folks in to build that. We also have an opportunity with corporate America. The Florida Republican Party has turned their back on corporate America. They want to put government into corporations. Again, a weird thing that's happening in Florida. I thought Republicans for small government out of your lives. Nope. Government in your life, government in your bedroom, government in your business, government, in Disney World, government everywhere. So we have an opportunity to try to figure out how we can work with corporate America, again, to raise more dollars into the Democratic Party. Once we can figure out how to raise more money, then we can invest in registration. Republicans have out-registered us for the first time in history. We got to go back to registering Democrats. And then we got to communicate to them. And we can't be a grievance party. We turned into what the Republicans are in Florida, a grievance party. We were an anti-Ron DeSantis party. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of policies to be anti on. But what are we for? We got to tell Democrats what we're for, right? We've seen that time and time again. The grievance thing doesn't work. And so we have to have a platform. We also have to fight back on things that aren't true, right? In Miami-Dade, a lot of Cubans and Venezuelans believe the Democratic Party in Florida are socialists. We're not socialists. Okay, we got to fight back. You can't just say we're not socialists, right? That doesn't work. You got to explain to people, and you got to explain them with policies. And so look, all hope is not lost. Florida is much closer than people think it is. We also have a 6-week abortion ban that just went into effect in Florida. That is going to drive Democrats out. We got book bans going on. That's going to drive Democrats out. We got to raise money. We got to build the infrastructure. We got to register voters. We got to engage them. And listen, you're not going to go overnight from losing by 19 points to winning by 5, right? It's going to take time. I have confidence in Nikki Fried that she's going to try to do that.
Well, we'll leave it there. That seems like a good place to end. So Congressman Jared Moskowitz, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And congrats on MSNBC.